The following podcast is brought to you by the Geeks 2 Network, and all opinions are those of the hosts. Listener discretion is advised. It's time to talk wrestling. This is the Dave Dynasty Show.
And welcome to the Dave Dynasty Show. This is your host, Dave Dynasty. We have a very, very special episode for you here. This is not our regular episode that will drop on Monday, but we just recorded an interview with a gentleman, and it was so powerful, so strong, so amazing. We determined we had to put it out immediately. Ike Isaacs, my co-host, did the interview, and it was remarkable. So we thought this is a story that just had to immediately come out. We did an interview with Brian Pillman Jr., of course, son of the late wrestling star Brian Pillman, and his story is just remarkable. From so many obstacles, so much darkness, and for him to come out of that and rise and become the man he is, and such a positive guy, it's remarkable. And as he starts, he's getting ready to start his quest into pro wrestling and training. We thought it was a good time for him to tell his backstory. We will touch base with Brian more in the future. He's going to do some call-ins, some updates when he begins training, so that we can follow this journey as it continues, because it is remarkable. You will be amazed at this story. There's some dark stuff, some pretty incredible stories and tales that you'll have you shaking your head. But again, no bells and whistles today, no commercials, no Warner's wisdom, nothing like that. This is just the raw interview given to you with the story that needed to be told, that needed to be shared, and not just in wrestling, in all of life. Such a great story that's still being written. It's still got so much left ahead of it. So please share this. Help spread the word. This is a story that the whole world should hear. So help with that quest. You can visit us at davedynasty.com. All of our social media. Give us any feedback you want through there's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or you can just drop us an email at dave@davedynasty.com. This is it. This is the tale of thus far of Brian Pillman Jr. Great story.
And welcome back to the Dave Dynasty Show. Today we have a pretty incredible guest, a guest that I don't think I've ever heard talk on other podcasts or other events like that, and a guest that, quite frankly, is probably going to be one of the best interviews you'll ever hear, because this is going to be down, it's going to be deep, it might be a little dark, but it's real. Brian Pillman Jr. is our guest today. How are we doing, man?
We're doing great. We're doing excellent.
All right, man. Well, hey, we're just going to jump right into it. So, for those of you who don't know, Brian Pillman Sr. was a wrestler who passed away years ago. So, if you don't know who he is, look him up. He was fantastic. He was an amazing wrestler. But Brian, you lost your father when you were very young, and I believe you were 3 years old, weren't you?
Yeah, 3 years old.
Okay. Do you have any...
Turning 4.
Okay. Do you have any memories of your father?
I get that question a lot, and the honest answer is not too many. Yeah. I will tell you, though, that the most memorable thing for me, and I think it's one of the most memorable things for a lot of people, was his voice, his very raspy voice, where you could really hear the surgeries that he went through, and you could hear it resonate in his voice and in his throat. Yeah. And that's something that'll kind of go with me forever. I'll always remember him for that. As far as his personality and the way he carried himself, I can only see what I see on clips and on videos and on TV, and of his character, the way he displayed his character on television. So I really never knew who he really was behind the scenes and stuff. So my goal is to just travel the world and hear those stories from people and see how much we have in common, because there, I can't tell you what kind of person he was, really. I never got to experience Brian Pillman. I know who Loose Cannon is. I know who Flying Brian is, but I don't know who Brian Pillman Sr. is, to be honest with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I bet it's it's kind of odd to have to kind of experience your father through only videos, interviews, and like other people talking about it. I'm sure that's kind of odd.
Yeah, other people's accounts, stories. Really cool, funny stories, epic stories, things he did, stupid things that he did that are similar to some of the stupid things I did growing up, and it just shows like how similar I am to him without even having the opportunity to imitate him. So that's when that kind of tells me that there's something genetic going on there,
Yeah, absolutely. So at the as we're kind of talking about, Brian Pillman Sr., your father, he was pretty well known. A lot of people knew who he was. He was pretty widely known as a wrestler and as a performer. So was there ever like an age or a time where you kind of realized how I guess you could say famous your father was?
There is an age, and I'll tell you what age that was, and that was this year. I never, growing up, 17, 18, 15, 12, all those years, I never quite knew just how much impact he had, not only in the States, but also on a global scale, until I finally took that step and reached out to pursue a wrestling career. And that's when I was just absolutely flooded with messages of people and fans, and just so much love and support from all different types of countries. People reaching out to me from London, England, and I've heard stories of his performances in Japan, and I can only imagine the influence he had in that country as well. And just to think that I thought growing up that he would be forgotten, by the time I came of age to be able to make that decision, to be able to settle down and have a backup plan and be an adult and finally say, hey, there's an opportunity, I can try this, I would have thought he'd be forgotten by now. And I'm just absolutely floored at how his impact has lasted so long. His legacy has just refused to die. The fans are just so passionate. They just refuse to forget who he was and what his legacy was. Yeah, so I would say 23 right now. This year I finally realized just how huge he was.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I he was one of those people that he obviously his death was clearly untimely. It wasn't something that was expected. He didn't have any. Obviously there are different accounts to say he might have had some health issues, but there wasn't really anyone saying, well, he's going to die soon. Obviously, so it's very surprising when people say, oh yeah, we still remember him, or it's not surprising that they say that, but it's surprising when it happened and how much of an effect he still has today. That would be, but so kind of on the same note, when your father did pass, your mother did remarry. How soon after your father passed did she remarry?
Almost immediately. I mean, I don't even remember there being a time where she was single, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
We heard the news of his death, and my mother was never the most trustworthy woman, I'll be honest with you. He was on the road a lot, and I can imagine that she wasn't making the best decisions when he was gone. And I'm pretty sure that her relationship with my stepfather had already been in the works, before he had even passed. And it was like within the next week she was a very, very codependent woman. She wasn't the type of woman that could sustain that lifestyle and pay the bills on that type of home and those types of vehicles that we own. She needed somebody with money. She needed someone to latch onto and to leech off of, and she found that very quickly. She didn't waste any time at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of on that same note, and obviously this is a sensitive matter, but you've talked about before to some people and like on Facebook and interviews and stuff that your mother and stepfather neglected you extremely. Can you kind of tell us what exactly happened?
Yeah, I can. So obviously when I was very young, it wasn't very apparent. She married him because he was rich. His father had a trucking company, a lot of money. He was going to inherit it, the whole 9 yards. Everything looked up. We still had that nice house, but we ended up moving to a more of a middle class home in Florence, Kentucky, and I really liked it. It was a nice house. Everything was looking all right. but you could kind of sense the atmosphere that it was going to get worse and worse, slowly and slowly. And it kind of just started. The abuse kind of started with my stepfather. It didn't really start with my mother. My mother was always the good cop, and he was the bad cop. She was very nice when it came to being disciplined. She was almost too nice to the point where she didn't really care. He would ground me, and she would let me out. And like when he'd go to work, and if he came home and I'm doing an interview, okay. If he came home and I was not in my room and not grounded, I was getting hit with the belt or I was getting my ass beat, one of the two. Yeah. He was very strict, and there's a right way and a wrong way to be strict, and this guy definitely had the wrong idea. Yeah, I wasn't even his own son to be putting hands on. And my mother, she should have stepped up and shown him the right way to be strict. Instead, she was just so laissez-faire. She didn't care what I did. She didn't care what he did. It ended up just being a battle between me and him, and she had no part of it. She did not interfere. She let this man physically and mentally abuse me. I remember being grounded in my room, where I was grounded to my bed, and I couldn't remove my anus from the bed frame. I had to sit on the bed. I couldn't even get up and do anything. They would let the dog shit in my room and not clean it up, and not let me leave my room to clean it up. Just really, really terrible atmosphere growing up. They would, eventually, come Christmas time, they'd buy me a GameCube or something to keep me busy while I was grounded. Never was I asked to go outside and throw a baseball or throw a football. I lacked a lot of the coordination that the younger kids had, and that was very apparent as I went on to play Pee Wee football and high school football, when I lacked a lot of the motor skills that the younger guys had, just because of being neglected and treated like absolute shit. And I was fine. I was happy with the video games and stuff. I thought that was normal. I thought I was a bad kid. I thought I was just a shitty kid. I figured, hey, my stepdad, he's smart. He's gonna just, I need to be punished. I was basically brainwashed into thinking I was a bad kid, and I thought I was a bad kid. I thought nobody taught me anything because I thought it was my fault in that. So it was very dark, very gruesome. I didn't starve at this time. At this time, I was pretty well fed. The stepdad cooked, but he was very very abusive. Locked me in my room, stuff like that. The animals that he had, believe it or not, every animal that he had, every dog would replicate and imitate his behavior, and would bite me and really fear me out of fear me into my room and wouldn't let me out, and I was being abused by my own dog. Believe it. This is the crazy. You can't make this shit up. This shit happened. I had bite marks on me. To this day, I have a little bit of a twitch when I see an aggressive dog. I can tell if a dog's aggressive, and I don't freak out anymore. But for a long time growing up, as an adult, 17, 18, I couldn't even pet people's dogs unless I absolutely 100% knew that it wasn't going to rip my arm off, just because of how I got straight bullied as a child by a fucking animal. It's absolutely ridiculous. So he ended up having one dog. We got rid of it because, we figured it was a bad dog. Oh, it wasn't his fault. It wasn't Mike's fault, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't the stepdad's fault that the dog was acting up. It was the dog's fault. So we got rid of the dog. Same fucking shit happened with the next dog. Sorry, excuse my French.
No, you're good. You're good.
I've been working on my French. I got Rosetta Stone here, actually. My company, they paid for it, so been learning that a little bit. And it was really rough for a while, and it just, I don't know how much detail you want me to get into, but it slowly got worse and worse as we downgraded our homes. We ended up moving to a much shittier neighborhood, and as when we did that, I just became a rebel at that point. And he could no longer control me. He could no longer ground me. We were in the shit. We were in the hood. There was no food in the refrigerator. He had no way to justify his behavior. I rebelled. Mother was always still, laissez-faire. She had her drugs. She was good to go. She would sleep about, I'd say 90% of the day, just sleeping, just had nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with life, nothing to do with me or my sisters. My sister Skylar, whose father was the biological father, that was her biological father, Mike was. She was treated very well for a while. And a lot of their efforts were put towards treating her nice. My stepdad wouldn't dare treat her wrong, but he turned her against me. He raised her to bully me and to call me names and stuff. And I had very low self-esteem growing up as a young kid up until high school when I started playing football and stuff. So that was a really big saving grace for me. It got to the point when we were living in the shitty neighborhood that there was no food in the fridge. There was nothing to be found. And Mike ended up just going to jail. He got in trouble. So it was just me, my mom, Skylar, his daughter, ended up getting, taken away by her grandmother. Her grandmother said, fuck this, we're taking her out. We're taking her and raising her on our own. And then my sister lived in the basement with her boyfriend. So we had a dude living there I didn't even know or bother to care about. He was a piece of shit. And it was just a really, really, just an environment that a young man should not be raised in. I didn't have any rules. I didn't have any structure or discipline. Basically just did whatever the hell I wanted. And in a way it sucked. In a way it was like, okay, like I'm different. Like I'm going to go, there's a lot of things I need to learn that other kids have learned growing up that I just don't know. Yeah. But in a way it was a blessing because I got a lot of that out of my system in the younger ages. Yeah, I drank alcohol. I partied. At 13 years old, I'm going out drinking and partying, leaving the house at 2 a.m., coming back at 4, not giving a damn. And there was other kids in the neighborhood like that, but like I said, it was a bad neighborhood. It was a shitty neighborhood.
Yeah.
So a lot of that was going on, a lot of drugs going on. I somehow managed to stay out of the drugs and, stick to just, alcohol and the occasional pot, but I think I really knew how destructive the pills and the drugs were to my mother. So when I saw just how it just straight shackled her to her room and just shackled her life down into nothingness, that really resonated with me, and I was able to stay away from it. And the guys I was playing football with, the guys I was playing sports with, they really brought me up, and they kept me away from that shit, and they gave me other things and other activities to do, whether it was video games or playing basketball and going out and hanging out with friends. It was really a blessing that I got into that at a young age, got into the sports and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of I want to step back just a second because I'll talk about how you started playing football and such. But you had a stepsister. I think her name was Brittany. Is that right?
Brittany is my half sister.
Half sister,
yeah.
Okay.
So we share the same father.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
she's a Flying Brian child as well.
Right on. So because I have just a couple notes here, but apparently she said that your mom spent all the money she received from WWE and the benefits on drugs. Is this something that you remember?
So there were a few benefit shows, right? So they put together these memorial shows for my father, and that Mike was alive at the time, so she was with the stepfather, and they got a lot of money for these. They got anywhere between $30,000 and $40,000 for these benefit shows. They raised a lot of money. They had a lot of stars, a lot of big name people, Rey Mysterio, Rob Van Dam, you name it. Like people coming out, putting on a show, putting themselves out there for a dead man to raise money for the kid, to raise money for the kids, so these kids can have an education one day, so these kids could go on and do things. And I don't have a receipt to show you where they spent their money and how they did it, but I'll tell you right now, Mike had a new truck, Mike had this, Mike had that, Melanie and Mike, they had all the drugs they probably wanted. They probably spent all that money on their goddamn selves and very, very little on us kids, because we were not fed properly, we were not clothed properly, and we were treated like shit, and that's the bottom line. Yeah. So and there's more money than that. Those are just the memorial shows. The every single quarter since as far as I can know, since my dad has been dead, every single quarter the WWE has provided my mother with a royalty check for the amount of products and the amount of items that he still is a part of, the amount of things that he still sells. To this day, this dead man still works for this company, still works for this corporation, and generates value for this corporation. And it is an account. It is on a statement. I've seen the quarterly statements. It says Brian Pillman Nostalgia Account. And it is a part of over $2 million. And this is just over a quarter. And she'll either get anywhere between, $3,000 or $4,000 to $30,000 a quarter on this, and we'll just not distribute that to any of his children. I mean, he's got a daughter named Danielle. He's got a daughter named Brittany. Alexis wasn't his own, but he adopted Alexis. She's now passed. And then you got myself, and I mean, it's just unreal how selfish and how terrible that drug addiction can turn a human being into. It's unreal.
Yeah, absolutely. So, on kind of a brighter note, I guess you could say, you mentioned playing football, and you said that it saved your life. How exactly
Absolutely.
how exactly did you get into football, and how did it turn your life around?
Okay, so I actually, growing up, I hated football because my stepfather forced me to play football, right?
Yeah.
He was like, you got to go play football, and he had me play for a Pee Wee team. It was one of the more hardcore Pee Wee teams. They were called the Blackhawks. And they had one of the most strict coaches, and he'd actually take you out in the woods and spank your ass if you weren't not, listening and, being, following the rules, right? And of course, I didn't follow the rules because I didn't follow the damn rules at home because no one taught me any rules and shit at home. So I got my ass spanked by him a few times, and it just really made me hate the sport. I hated human interaction. I hated being with those kids. The kids made fun of me because, I wasn't athletic. Like I said before, a lot of those motor skills I hadn't developed. They wouldn't let me play a skill position like running back or quarterback or whatever, despite having the genetics of a NFL athlete, right? It's crazy to think that's how that played out. But and then so I played a little Pee Wee, got out of it because I hated it. And then eighth grade year, I didn't play. Seventh and eighth grade year, I didn't play sports or nothing. I was kind of just a nobody. Played video games, kept to myself. Had some friends and stuff, but it was eighth grade going into freshman year. They had the announcements on in middle school, and they were talking about the weightlifting for freshmen. They said, all right, so eighth graders, it was the end of eighth grade. They were like, eighth graders going into freshman high school, there's going to be weightlifting at 5:30 on Monday. Be there if you want to be a part of, if you want to be a part of the football team at Dixie Heights, then be at the weightlifting because that's the starting point. There's not going to be any football going on. It's just going to be all weightlifting and stuff. So I thought, this would be a great time to start off fresh, go in there and build up my strength because I thought maybe that's what I needed. I needed some more muscle. I needed some more strength to show these kids that I could play football. And my father played football, so it was always sort of just, okay, I need to play football. My dad played football. He loved the sport. Let's go play football. So then through the weightlifting and through those summer practices, there wasn't any school. It wasn't easy for those kids to tell that I was different. It wasn't so easy for them to tell that I was in a lower social class than them, and they couldn't make fun of me for my clothes because we were all just wearing, workout stuff. So when they heard my story, when they heard who I was, they were kind of impressed by that, and they really wanted to befriend me because of it. And I ended up making friends with a lot of the more, a lot more well-off, a lot of more popular kids, and they ended up being my real friends. They were really nice to me, and when I went to their houses and I got to actually meet them and meet their parents, I thought, wow, like they have it so well. They have food on the table. They have parents that give a damn. I thought they were rich. Oh, they're rich. That was the word I used. I was like, oh, these kids are rich. Yeah. But right, really, like, they were just average kids. I was just below average on the, on the social pole of scale, totem pole. But that's they kind of took their lessons that they learned from their parents and showed me the way and showed me that not to hang out with the bad kids and not to hang out with the drug kids, and in a way I had an adverse influence on them. I kind of influenced them negatively by bringing them around my world. Come 12 or 13, a lot of us freshmen and sophomores, we were partying at my mom's house because she was passed out asleep upstairs. So it ended up being like this cool little world where we would hang out with the cool kids. We wouldn't hang out with the losers, but then we would go hang out in this little shitty world where we could drink and do alcohol and have fun and smoke pot and all that. So, I became popular because of that, because of my lack of rules and my lack of structure. People thought that was cool, that I could do whatever I wanted. And that's when I started to think, oh, I'm not a loser. I am kind of cool. I can do all this cool stuff. I'm playing football, this, that, and the other. But, after a while, that got old. He got really old. I started taking football seriously. A lot of my friends, because my friends started taking it seriously, right? So you really replicate what those around you are doing. You replicate their goals. You replicate their values and their beliefs. And we all truly believe that we were going to be great football players and that we were going to do everything we could to be the best football players we could. And our coaches really got in our heads. Our coaches really inspired us. you could say they're bad coaches, skill wise, but they were really good at inspiring us and getting in our heads and making us work. And we worked really hard in the weight room. We worked really hard on the field. And during the season, we didn't fuck around. We didn't party and all that. We took it seriously and we had a passion for it. And that passion ultimately propelled it. It showed and reflected in my grades, and it reflected in my attendance at school. You can't play on Friday if you didn't come to school on Monday, right? So
Yeah.
it ultimately just it made my life excel and into a positive direction. And I can't thank all my friends and my peers and my coaches and just the sport of football enough for how it's impacted my life.
Absolutely. So, as well, kind of around the part of this part of the story where you started doing better, you went to live with your aunt, correct?
That is correct. But there was a step before that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you'd want to talk about that.
Yeah, go ahead. You talk.
Okay, so like when I was around 15, I was really fed up with the atmosphere I was in, and I had a really good friend that actually wasn't into sports and wasn't playing football. He was one of the down on his luck kids that was living in the neighborhood. But his parents were actually very sweet. They were very, very, or his mother rather. He didn't have two parents; he had one. So we shared that trait together. That we were being raised by a single. Well, he was being raised by a single mother. I was being raised by fucking nobody. But we kind of connected on that level. And when I got to meet his mother, we developed a very good relationship. He was a Mexican, and his mother was 100% Mexican, and her parents were actually illegal immigrants to the States. So, they were starting off fresh in this country. They were starting off from nothing. And this woman, she was one of the most hardworking women I've ever met. Her name was Stella, and her son, my best friend to this day, his name is Paul. I don't even call him my best friend, I just consider him a brother. So what happened was I said, fuck this. I told my mother, I said, I've been staying at Paul's for a while. His mom feeds me. His mom takes care of me. She calls me. She asks me when I'm, what I'm doing, what I'm up to. You can't even get out of the goddamn bed to even talk to me. I'm going to go live with them. You know what she said? She said, all right, okay.
Yep.
I didn't give a damn. I threw all my clothes into a garbage bag and off I went. I went over to Paul's house. It wasn't very far away. I could walk there.
Yeah.
But it was where I needed to be. It was where I needed to live, and they gave me that opportunity to focus on school and stuff because you can't focus on improving yourself when you have those distractions of a terrible home life and then an environment, a destructive environment, and a drug-filled environment.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
She provided me with a sanctuary, so to speak, and that happened for about 2 years. And then we can get to what you were asking about, how Aunt Linda, she was taking care of Granny, my grandmother, who, being a she wasn't even born in America. She was 18 when she came here from Wales. She was old and very set in her ways. She didn't want to move out of her house. She didn't want to move down to where we lived to take care of me. My aunt took care of her, and finally, it sounds terrible, but it was a blessing that she finally passed because my aunt was then able to move down to Kentucky and purchase a home with the entirety of her 401k in Edgewood in the Dixie Heights School District, so I could go to school with the same friends that drug me up and pulled me out of the hood and raised me to a higher standard. So that was very nice of her, and that's where we can take off on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of talking a little bit on a different scale here, talking about kind of the professional wrestling business. As a lot of people,
let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah,
we're done with my life.
Well, it's still your life. This is still man. But
or my past, rather. Let's talk about the present and the future. How about that?
Yeah. Well, this is still a little bit about the past. It kind of has to do with how your father was a part of the profession of professional wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
I know sometimes with people, you ask yourself, well, if my father had done a different job, if he had been a stockbroker or this or that, maybe this wouldn't have happened to him. So were you ever bitter at professional wrestling? Did you ever feel that maybe your dad, if he had done something different, maybe things would be different today?
Yeah, I mean let's just paint it as a fact. I mean, if he wasn't in the line of work he was in, he wouldn't have been set up to pass so soon. I think the lifestyle that at that time, I think wrestling was an entirely different beast at that time than it is now.
Yeah.
I think guys were doing a lot more drugs. They were doing a lot more steroids. They were doing a lot more partying. Now I know that shit still goes on. Obviously, there's no way to deny it. But I think I think the industry was at its infancy. It was just blowing up. It was just getting huge, and there was not a lot of control. There was not a lot of safety measures and barriers for these guys to just let loose. And my grandfather had a heart condition, so it wasn't like he had a genetic defect in his heart. And they did tests on me when I was younger, and I don't have the same issue, but he had a pre-existing condition that could have started a heart attack. But I'll tell you what, the steroids and the coke and the drinking and all the partying that these guys were doing in the 90s, that didn't fucking help. You know what I mean?
No, not at
So
all.
yeah, had he been a goddamn accountant or something, then yeah, maybe he would have lived, and we would have lived an average life, and everything would have been fine, and I would have just been another John Smith on the road. But guess what? I'm not that. I'm Brian fucking Pillman, So I'm very proud of what he did. I'm very proud of the life that he chose. And you know what? He may have died, but that might be a blessing. That's a curse in the sense that, sure, if he would have lived with that career as a wrestler, I would be very well off. You know what? I would have a lot of things, a lot of nice things, but I wouldn't have the drive and I wouldn't have the motivation I have now to go out there and make a name for myself and to really succeed his legacy in the industry. I would probably be just another punk-ass rich kid with a bunch of shit given to him, and I probably wouldn't have any drive to go out there and become a wrestler.
Absolutely.
So in a way, his passing is a blessing to my entire life.
I got you. I feel you. I feel like you need to make a T-shirt that says Brian fucking Pillman. I feel like that needs to be something.
I think I got one lying around somewhere. It might be at my
But all right. Well,
that's
actually
my favorite. That's my favorite iteration of his. That's my favorite title of his. You can call him Flying Brian or you can call him Loose Cannon, but my favorite is Brian fucking Pillman.
that is fantastic.
That'll be my fucking stage name, huh?
Yeah, I'll say that's what you need right there, man. So all right.
Yeah.
So obviously, if people who are listening to this don't understand yet, your father was a wrestler. So have you been a fan of wrestling?
I know anything about wrestling.
Do what now?
I said if they know anything about wrestling, they'll know who Brian Pillman is.
Exactly. If they know anything about wrestling, they'll know who Brian Pillman is. So have you always been a fan of wrestling? Have you watched it and followed over the years, or were you just kind of someone who kind of eased himself into it as they aged?
So as a young kid, I would say I liked it. It was really cool. I was like, oh, my dad's a wrestler and this, that, and the other, and I watched it. But I slowly lost interest, and a lot of my family, like my extended family, they really steered me away from the whole industry of wrestling. Oh, it killed your father, this, that, and the other. And I'll be honest with you, I just wasn't that captivated by it growing up. I wasn't that entertained by it. I was more focused on video games and football and doing my own thing and stuff. I didn't watch a lot of TV really, and being that WWE is mostly an entertainment on TV, it was just not something that really caught my attention. It was always in the back of my head, like, hey, this might be an opportunity, but I really didn't expect it to be something that would be such a lasting impact. Like I didn't think down the road I would be able to pursue it like I am now. I thought that people might forget, he was an old timer on TV. He died at an early age, so a lot of the younger guys didn't think about him. So I really didn't put all my eggs in that basket, and I really didn't get involved in the scene at all. And just in these past few months is where I'm really starting to do some more research into the scene of wrestling, and really, like, for the first time in my life, really, I've actually really want to be a wrestler, and I really want to express my talent because I do think I have the talent for it. But definitely growing up, it was not. It was something that a lot of my friends were, interested in, and they thought it was so cool that my father was a wrestler, and so I would sometimes humor them and say, "Yeah, let's go watch some wrestling," or we would go to shows because I would get tickets.
Yeah.
So like the WWE would get my mother somehow through, that's like one of the few things she fucking did for me. Of course, it's just getting a free, it's a goddamn email that she had to send. With one of the 4 hours that she was awake, she used to send an email to somebody, and she'd get us some tickets, and we would go to these events and stuff for completely free and not have bad seats at all. I mean, one time we had floor seats at a Raw event, and it was unreal. And it was and I'll tell you what, live is a whole nother experience. wrestling and the live experience is amazing. It's amazing to see the dynamics, the acrobatics of the performance, and you really hear it. You really, you see it and stuff. But it wasn't something that I enjoyed watching on TV at all.
Yeah.
And I think mostly it's just because I wasn't much of a TV watching kind of guy. I had suffered. Well, I wouldn't say I suffered from ADD, but I was one of those kids that kind of like had to be doing something at all times. I had to be playing a video game or something. I needed that escape. Really, I needed to get really engrossed in something. I couldn't just sit there and watch stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No. Definitely.
But I'm doing everything I can to research the scene and get back into the scene that I was born into.
Yeah. Absolutely. So then, kind of talking about why, kind of a why question now. Obviously, with everything that's happened in your life, I think most people would probably either A, still be in the world that they were in, or B, want to stay away from all the things that have possibly caused them any kind of issues in life. So it's like, why have you decided to go back, or why have you decided at this point in your life to pursue wrestling? Is there like a specific reason?
I can tell you why. I can tell you why, because every so often growing up, and maybe every month or so, I would get a message from a fan or an old friend of my father's, and it would say something along the lines of, your father was great, like he was amazing, I loved him so much, he touched millions, I just hope you're doing all right. I've heard you're not in the best situation, and really I want to do it for those people. I want to do it for the people that truly loved him, because I truly think that they love me because they loved him, and they really truly care about me. They would check up on me and see how I'm doing. And they would, every now and then somebody would say, hey, when are you going to start wrestling? When are you going to do this? And I've been getting these messages since I was, 14 years old. When are you going to think about wrestling? Like, what age do you think you'll start? And I'd always brush it off like, oh, they're just fans, they like my dad or whatever. They don't really care about me. But I'm just this last year, I'm 22 years old and I'm starting a career in technology, and people are still reaching out to me, and I'm thinking, people still care about him. People still think about my father. And the truth is that it's more than that. They loved him. They really do. And they still love him. And they still are there. A lot of people's careers are inspired by what he did in the ring and what he did traveling the world. And to me, it would be a crime to not pursue this. It would be a crime to each and every one of those fans for me to not go out there and give it every single thing I got so I could continue his legacy. Yeah. So to me, it's not. I'm not doing this for me. I'm not doing it for the fame. I'm not doing it for the money. And you know what? I understand that the road that he traveled down, and it ended up being a destructive path, and he got a little ahead of himself, and it ended up being his life. But the amount of shit that I went through growing up, I didn't do all that shit. I didn't overcome alcohol addiction. I didn't overcome being surrounded by drugs and alcohol and just shit people. I didn't bring myself out of that hole. I didn't graduate college and finish school. I didn't do all that shit just to sit on the fucking computer for the next 45 years staring at the screen. I did it because I knew that there was something out there. I knew that there was people out there that if I was to make the decision to become a wrestler, that they would support me and they would show me the same love and support that they showed my father. And I know that I will succeed because of that, because it is impossible for me to fail. And that's why I did it. That's why I finally said, fuck this. I woke up and I said, I'm tired of being average when there's so many people out there that want me to be amazing. They want me to be great. And so I sent that email to Lance and I said, when are we going to start training?
Oh, absolutely. And that's first of all, it's inspiring. I mean, just simply put it, that is inspiring, because a lot of people don't realize that they can push forward out of adversity, and do something with their life. And personally, it's inspiring. But you talked about how you're doing it for the fans. You're doing it for the people that loved your father and who subsequently also love you. Is your family supportive, though? Is your family supportive of your decision at this point in time?
Now, my family is it's kind of a small list at this point. I've got some uncles and some aunts, and my main immediate family is my sister Brittany and my aunt Linda, and that's who I finished my high school career with. That's who I finished college with, living with them and commuting to and back and forth from college. And I'll tell you right now, the second I told them that, their eyes lit up, and they knew that it was real, and they knew that I believed that I was going to do this. And my Aunt Linda was one of the people that supported my father on his journey and helped cook meals for him and helped build him into the athletic beast that he was. So when she got to see that she was going to get that opportunity again to build another athlete and to work on something else and to give herself another purpose, she was more than supportive. Everybody questions and says, hey, well, you need to think about this, you need to think about that. And of course they did. They tried to make me be realistic about it and all that. And they tried to be, careful about it, say, hey, make sure what you're getting into, yada, yada, yada. But at the end of the day, they were more than supportive. They were excited. They were ecstatic. My sister has always seen this in me. She's always seen that I'm different. She's always seen that I love the spotlight and I love, being around people, and I love showing off. And she's always thought that I would be a great wrestler. And I mean, she was more. My sister just loved it. She said that people reach out to her to do gigs and to do wrestling and stuff, and she said, it's just not for me, Brian. I'm just not like you. I can't reach out to people. I can't inspire people like you can. I don't like the spotlight. She's like, you need to do this. This is what you need to do. So my family, my two main family members, and of course my friends were all very supportive. My two roommates I live with right now, they said, Brian, do not even fucking look back. Like, you can do this without a doubt.
Absolutely. And I think like you said, a lot of the people who, believed in your father and also pushed him forward, the fans, the people who loved him. I think everyone's is kind of behind you too. I mean, because I think we all see that you've got something. You
I mean, it's unreal. It's phenomenal. I mean, it's unreal. I don't even think it's real right now. Just the amount of people that have reached out to me, whether it's Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. I mean, they are really pulling for this. They really want to see me. I mean, I heard somebody say that their life dream came true because they thought that it would be the coolest thing for me to join wrestling. And to me, that really hit me in the heart, because not the fact that they know my father more than I did. They all know him more than me because he was alive. They got to experience him while he was alive. Yeah. And to me, I refuse to let that go. I refuse to let this opportunity be squandered the same way my mother squandered all of the opportunities I could have had she invested our inheritance and worked towards that. And a lot of it is proving her wrong too. A lot of it is, just showing her that she's nothing to me anymore. And I will make my father's name great again.
Absolutely. So now this is something I have no idea about. This is something that Dave talked to me about briefly. But do you have a relationship with a wrestler or a former wrestler? And I'm not really clear about how that is, but what is your relationship with Steve Austin?
Okay, so I'll talk a little bit about that. It's a relatively new relationship. He was, like a lot of people know, he was one of my father's best friends in the business. They were the Hollywood Blondes. Yeah. They went from that phase of being the Hollywood Blondes and then into the badass attitude phase where they became enemies and stuff. And he told me, he said, your father was one of my best friends. And I can really feel that, and I can really hear that in his voice when he talks to me. It's loud, and he really sounds like that on the phone. I mean, he really is just loud and low and just very intense when he talks to you. It's not an act. It really isn't. But just this past year, I was looking around on Twitter and just messing around and talking about wrestling. Somebody had something about wrestling, and I retweeted it, and he sent me a direct message. He said, are you Brian Pillman's son? And I said, yeah, you bet your ass I am. And then I didn't believe it was really his account. I thought it was one of those, parody Steve Austin accounts. And then of course I pull it up and there's the little Twitter icon, official 3.9 million followers, whatever. And I'm like, God damn. About time he reached out and, talked to me, because, a lot of these, they're not to blame. The wrestlers aren't to blame for our situation, and they did not know that. I mean, people in our neighborhood didn't even know what was going on. So how could these wrestlers that are so many miles away, they probably thought we were doing great. They probably thought we were in school, doing just fine. So finally he reached out to me. He said, hey, I got this weightlifting belt of your father. And this was just this year. He said, I got this weightlifting belt of your father's. I want to give it to you. It says flying on it. And I mean, I just lit up. I didn't even know what to say. I hadn't been lifting weights at the time. I was actually just getting back into being active again after my 6-year stint of playing video games and sitting on my ass, I decided it was time to get back in shape. I started doing hot yoga with my buddy. My buddy got me into it, and so I was getting in shape. I was feeling really good, and he said, "I'm going to send you this weightlifting belt." And I thought, wow, that's like some shit out of the movies. You get the belt. It comes from a legend, and you put it on, and all of a sudden you're flying Brian. And I mean, once I put that belt on and did my first squat in it, it was just I knew the dream was real. I knew that everything that I was thinking about doing was real, and I knew what I needed to do. And I started to develop a relationship with him where we would talk on the phone. He does, he's not real big on the whole messaging and stuff. He likes to talk. He likes to talk on the phone. So I'd call him here and there, and I'd tell him, I'd say, hey, I'm graduating school, because I was in school at this time, and I told him, I'm going to class or whatever. And he's like, oh, you got plans after school? What are you doing? And I'm like, yeah, I got this nice job lined up. I'm going to be working at this company in Cincinnati, working in technology. And he's like, that's so great. Like, I'm so proud of where you've come from, because I told him my story and everything one day walking around campus, and he really listens. And our phone calls are never short. They're never 10 or 15 minutes long. They're always 35 to 40 minutes long, because he really was a good friend of my father's, and he really cared. And he would tell me cool stories and stuff, and we would laugh about them. And then one day I sent him a text message. I said, hey, and this was, a few weeks ago. I said, hey, like, a lot of this is happening fast. It wasn't a month ago that I decided to come out with that I'm going to be a wrestler. It was just about a week or two ago. I texted him. I said, hey, I need to talk to you on the phone. Like, I really want to tell you something. And that's when I just gave him the whole spiel. I said, I'm done. I'm done waking up every morning and thinking about what could be. I don't want to go and live my life and regret not giving this a shot. And I mean, he was just so supportive. He the first thing he said was, this is going to be hard, but you're going to do it. And he told me about the dark side of wrestling, the dark side of the industry, and he also told me the good things, the things I should look forward to, and the way I should prepare myself physically. And we had a great talk. He asked me about yoga, and I talked to him a little bit how he could start doing yoga to increase his flexibility and to increase his athleticism, and he really enjoyed that, and we're starting to develop a very much a friendship. Like, I don't look at him as like this big star. That he's really not. He's a very down to earth guy. He's not a real stuck up star. Like, he doesn't flaunt himself around LA. He told me he likes to work out in his garage by himself. He really keeps to himself. He's a really, my Aunt Linda calls him one of the good old boys. He's a good old boy. So I really foster I really want to foster my friendship with him and keep that going.
Absolutely. So, and also a little bit before, you're talking about how literally you're like on the cusp of getting ready to do this. You're there. You're about to embark on a journey of wrestling, and you mentioned earlier that you reached out to Lance Storm to discuss training, and how has that gone? How has that transpired so far?
So I'll be honest, Lance is kind of, he takes a little while to get back to you. He's not as friendly and emotional as like most people. He's kind of very, he's very business. He's very strict. He's very to the point. And everyone I've asked, they said he's the best place to go. He doesn't deal with the drugs. He doesn't deal with the bullshit. He's very, I guess I haven't really spoken with him on the phone or met him in person, but just in his demeanor, with the way he words his emails and stuff, I can tell he's a very straight, clean-cut guy. Like, he doesn't deal with the bullshit, and he's been taking a little while to get back to me, but we've had a few emails back and forth. My initial email to him was just strictly questions, information, inquiring, how much does this training cost? I told him, I said, hey, I've been out of the scene since I was a kid. I don't know anything about the wrestling scene. How does someone advance in the wrestling scene? How do you do this? How do you get better? How do you become a more skilled wrestler? I mean, is there really a way to win? Is there a way to like be better than the other guy? And he actually came back with a very, very long and descriptive email answering all the questions that I asked. And I was very impressed with the fact that he gave me all that, and he really disclosed the information. And he said, hey, it's not always a clean-cut ladder to success. He said some of the rungs on the ladder in wrestling are missing, and you got to navigate into some weird places to get to the top. And he told me a lot of it has to do with having a name and selling the merchandise. And he said, Brian, you've got that. He said one of the biggest obstacles you face is you've already got out of the way just with your name. So he was very encouraging. He was realistic with me. He told me, it's not going to be it's not going to be easy. It's an 8 to 4 every day thing for 12 weeks. And, it's very rigorous training. And I do want the hardest and best training. I want the most rigorous. I want the best training that there is out there. Yeah. And everyone I've asked, has pointed me towards him. So, before I even sent the email to him, I had already done some research on where the best place to train was. And outside of the WWE Center in Orlando, that you kind of got to get recruited to that. He's the best place to start. So I was very confident reaching out to him, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm waiting on an email back from him as far as the financial details go, and we're going to see where it goes. Hopefully, I can start in September. I'm eager to start early. I'm eager to start in September, but at the very, very latest, I will start in January for sure of next year. But looking forward to December.
Absolutely.
Or September.
Absolutely, September. Yeah. So this is kind of a question that I think people have, skeptics have, I would say. You seem you're very goal oriented. You have a very specific timeline in your brain of how you want to do things. You're very. It seems like you're just very, very, very eager to start doing this and to get in this line of work. And as with with any person, you're going to have some skeptics. You're going to have some haters. You're going to have some people who are quite frankly just trying to be dicks. And
oh yeah. That's the same. That's true with any scene, not just wrestling, but
yeah. But definitely, yeah. So then, my question would be is like, first of all, has anybody said this, and then how would you respond to people saying that you're just wrestling and you're just trying to cash in your father's name? What would you say to that people?
Well, what I'd tell them? I would say that I might have an advantage. I do have a name, and there's a lot of prestige, and there's a lot of money, and there's a lot of fans already attached to that name. But I'll tell you what, that might be an advantage for me. But the amount of disadvantages, the amount of shit that I went through growing up, the amount of doubt and the amount of fear that I had to overcome to even consider pursuing this career, the amount that I've already accomplished already, that so many others do not have to face. So many other people don't have to face these obstacles. I'd say it's an even fucking playing field. And I'd say that I'm doing this not for me. I'm not doing this to milk his name and to make money off this. I'm doing this for the people that brought me up and pulled me out of addiction and pulled me out of poverty to go and pursue this. So I would say if you consider all the disadvantages in my life and the advantages of having his name, I would say I'm on an even playing field with the guys that grew up with support and love and a family, and that people that sponsored them to go out and train and do the things that they love to do, even though they didn't have, a name for themselves. So I'd say it's an even playing field at this point.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I definitely see where that comes from. But like you said too, is that with anything you do, there's going to be someone that's going to be in the back saying, fuck you, you can't do it, or fuck you, you're just doing this, So definitely, you've got a plan in place. So, like I said, if just fuck people who say you can't do it, or you're just doing it for some stupid reason, You obviously have your reasons.
Yeah, I think my reasons are a lot better than most people's.
Yeah, definitely.
I think I have a dream, and I think I have a goal, and I think I'm going to stick to it. And I think people do it for many different reasons. Some people do it for money. Some people do it for fame. I do it because I wake up every morning and I can't get it out of my brain. I can't get it out of my head, and I can't get it out of my genes. My genes were built to do this. I have the ability to speak publicly. I have the athletic ability to perform and to have that balance and that acrobatic ability and that strength to lift up into combat in the ring and just I have it all. I really do think I have what it takes to be a wrestler, and that's not being cocky. That's just growing up and just realizing these things about myself. And it wasn't until these past few years that I really gained that confidence in myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I would comment on that, saying that it's not necessarily cockiness. I think cockiness is more like saying you will do this, you are doing it, and that you're going to be better than everybody else. But in your mind, I think it's you're going to strive to be better than people because you think you have that ability to be better. So I definitely see where you're coming from there, brother.
I do think I have the genes for it, but I will be a student of the industry for a very long time. I think a true master is an eternal student, and I think I will learn. And that's why I want to go to a school where I can learn this craft. I don't want to just go into it and start trying to do this shit. You know what I mean? I want to go learn from the best. So I think I'm gonna be a student until the day I die. I'm gonna be learning. I'm gonna be improving myself long after I, whether I make it to, whether I take a road stop at NXT or go straight to the WWE. It doesn't matter where I'm at. I'm going to be learning. It doesn't matter what organization I'm in. I'm going to be learning. I'm going to be improving, and I'm going to be using my genetics and the tools that are inherent in me to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you kind of mentioned there for a second, you said NXT, WWE, and obviously everybody strives for that end goal, right? Everybody.
My father worked for 3 different organizations: ECW, WCW, WWE. Who cares what the acronym is going to be when I'm there? But when I'm there, people are going to know where I'm at, and they're going to know where to watch me and where to find me.
Absolutely. So, is there? Like I said, everybody strives to be at the best of the best, the WWE. But do you have any other goals in terms of, like you said, the ladder to get there? Do you have any other places you want to go? Or is there anything like that in your mind?
I'd say the main goal is to finish what my father started and change the industry and revolutionize the industry. And I think any stopping point, whether it's NXT or just making it into the WWE, those are all stepping stones. Those are all very small stepping stones to my ultimate goal of fulfilling his legacy and revolutionizing the wrestling industry, no matter what organization that is in. And right now I'm just focusing on my main plan, and that is to start training, and that is going to be in Calgary at the Storm Wrestling Academy.
Absolutely.
And that's going to be my first stepping stone. Any stepping stone after that is just, that's all it is. It's just a stepping stone to my ultimate goal.
Absolutely. So, as we kind of wrap up the interview, you've already said you have a very specific goal. I feel like you are just, you know what you're going to do. You have that. So, besides going and training, hopefully, like you said, in September or at latest January, do you have any other goals for 2017?
Yeah, definitely, and that is to improve myself and to improve my relationship with my family. I want to, before I leave for Calgary, I want to move back in and save some money up and spend some time with my Aunt Linda, my sister. And another thing I'm working on is transforming my body. I think I am in very great shape right now. I'm a solid 205, 210 pounds, lean, tight core. But I think I could do a lot more in terms of volume, especially, in the upper body. A lot of my weight's in my lower body. I have very big and strong legs, which is where, most of my 200 pounds is carried in. I think my arms could be a lot bigger. I think my biceps could be a lot bigger. I spent a lot of time toning and sculpting through hot yoga for the past 7 months, and these past couple weeks I'm just now getting into the weight room and pumping the iron. It's not something that's foreign to me. I worked out heavy in high school. I did conditioning and strength and body, heavy weightlifting in high school, so it's not foreign to me. I know where to start. I know where to begin. I have a lot of friends. I have a lot of people at the gym that know me. They remember me from back in the day, and they're very supportive. They know my goals. They've heard my story, whether it was on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. They're all pushing for me. They're reaching out to me to work out, and I really want to build a bigger, more impressive form, a more impressive shape for myself. That way, that if there is any doubt, if there is any haters that don't think I can do it because I'm too small, then they can just shove it up their mouth, because come September, come January, I'm going to be in very impressive shape. And that's one of my biggest goals right now, is to transform my body.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, like I said, throughout this entire conversation, I literally think the one thing that keeps coming to my mind, if someone were to say Brian Pillman Jr., if someone said that to me, the one word I would come to mind is vigorous and goal-oriented. Like, straight up, I'm impressed with how goal-oriented you are. That is just, it's insane, because, you talk to some people and they're like, yeah, I have this dream, but quite literally, you have a path, and you've planned so many steps ahead, and, obviously.
Yeah, for 17 years I dreamed about it. The dreams are done. It's a reality now, and I'm going to make it a reality. I'm tired of dreaming. I'm tired of thinking and guessing and ifing. There's no more ifs. There's no more buts. There's no more this, that, or the other. I'm doing this, and I'm going to pursue this at 100% speed, 120 miles an hour.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, one of the last questions I have for you, and this might be a loaded question, and I'm sure you do have an answer, but, obviously, if you had to talk to somebody, you had to introduce yourself to wrestling fans, how would you do that?
Well, I think we're doing that right now, brother. I think this is my first coming out. I think people are going to hear this and they're going to listen. They're going to hear my story and they're going to hear my goals that you're talking about. But I definitely want to, before I come out with my name and what my gimmick's going to be and what my style is going to be. I definitely want to train the technical aspect first before I start building my my theme. I don't know if I necessarily want to just ride on the coattails of my father and be Flying Brian Jr. and just go for the same high flying style. I don't know if I want to kind of create my own theme or my own style. All I know is that right now it is to focus on the technical aspect of wrestling, the actual performance of wrestling, as well as the physical and body, the body shaping of wrestling. And I think the fans, I think me reaching out to Lance was enough for the fans to see on social media that I was very serious about this, and a lot of people have been reaching out to me. But as far as coming out with my character and who, what my style is going to be, whether I'm going to be a bad guy or a good guy or whatever, etc., I think I'm going to leave that up for time to tell. I'm going to see how I develop as a character, see how I develop as a man, and see what shines best, see what works best for the industry. I know there's a lot of writing and background that goes in, a lot of planning that goes into developing a character, and I think that stage, I'm not at that stage yet. Yeah. Right now, I'm just going to try and be myself and have a lot of fun with it. And to be honest with you, I think my current personality and the way I carry myself, I think that would make a great wrestler. I think I'm naturally a very very contagious personality. I think I have a very funny laugh. When people hear my laugh, I think they will fucking shit their pants and laugh with me. I have a contagious laugh. I think my personality is contagious. I have a very strong personality, and I think I'm going to come out and it's going to be very natural. I don't think it's going to be some faux gimmick. I don't think it's going to be some facade that I'm putting up. I think I'm going to honestly just be my damn self, and people are going to love it.
Absolutely. No, I mean, a lot of successful wrestlers, they're successful because they're not acting. They're just being who they are. I feel like that's where it's at. But well, all right, man. Well, hey, this has been a hell of an interview, man. I mean,
thank you. I appreciate it.
I mean, quite frankly, I had heard your story through second accounts and stuff like that, but hearing it from the horse's mouth, I guess you could say, it has a certain weight to it, a certain effect of it, and you really kind of feel that. So definitely, man. First of all, before I close it out, where can people find you on social media so fans can follow you in your training?
Okay, so my Instagram is FlyingBrian41. 41 was my father's football number when he played for Miami of Ohio. Okay. So 41 is kind of like our family number. We always look for that number, and every time we see that number, it's kind of like he's smiling down on us. So my Instagram is Flying with no G, Brian, Brian, 41. My Snapchat is the same, Flying Brian 41. My Facebook is Brian Pillman, and my Twitter is actually GCD Pills, because I originally started my Twitter when I was big into the video game scene, the esports scene, and GCD stands for the very first competitive, serious League of Legends team I had, and that was our acronym for our team name. We call it ourselves Good Call Drew, because our mid laner's name was Drew, and he made good calls. So our team name was Good Call Drew, and I don't know how to change your Twitter tag. I don't know if you can, but I've already got too many followers to worry about changing it. And I still like to keep, my tabs on the esports scene and see how things are going in there. So I really have no intentions of changing my Twitter. So just follow GCD, all caps, and then Pills, Pills. That was my handle in the gaming days. It was just a shortened version of my last name. Yeah. It kind of had a little ring to it, Pills. I had other names like Pills That Kills, Pillionaire, stuff like that. A little play on words with my last name. I enjoyed doing that for some reason.
Well, hey, you should make T-shirts with a Pillionaire on that. I would buy one of those.
Yeah, that would be funny, and then just have a bunch of money and shit everywhere. Yeah, that'd be cool. Well, sorry for cursing so much on your podcast. I hope children aren't watching.
If they are, it is what it is, man.
But can you provide me with a link or something when you guys have it available, and I'll share it on my accounts, and we can see if people want to listen in on it.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. Well, hey, but yeah, we'll give you all that stuff. We'll link all your social medias down in the descriptions and stuff, so that people can follow you and all that good stuff and keep up with you.
Yep.
But hey, man, like I said, this has been a hell of an interview. I gotta tell you, this has been.
I like to express myself.
No, hey man, that's perfectly good, man. Like I said, that is probably one of the most serious interviews I've ever done, but as well probably one of the best. So definitely, man. Hey, we're gonna be looking forward to you
seeing.
Yeah, man. But we're gonna look forward to seeing you explode with your career, and maybe one day down the road when you got done with your training or during your training, we'll hook back up with you and get you back on here or something, man. But yeah, definitely.
It would be my pleasure. It would be my pleasure. I'll always remember this as my first interview in the scene. It was really wonderful. And thank you for asking some deep questions, and I was very, very excited to express myself for you, and I really appreciate it.
Well, hey, man, we appreciate it maybe just as much because, like I said, this is huge. It's an actual honor to be able to talk to you, get to open up your brain a little bit, pick it, and just get to know Brian Pillman Jr. Definitely, man. But
yeah,
hey,
and like I said earlier, it's the fans like you, it's the people like you that have motivated me to pursue this, because I understand where you're coming from. I understand that my father's work was not yet finished, and too many people had to see him go too soon, and we need to finish what he started. So, thank you again.
Absolutely, man. Well, hey, thank you so much. We'll keep tabs on you, man. Make sure Dave keeps talking to you.
You better.
Tabs on you. Because, like I said, we're excited, man. We're very excited. Well, hey,
thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful night, man. Like I said,
you too.
If you need anything from the Dave Dynasty show or Dave Dynasty or Ike Isaacs, just throw us a bone and we'll talk to you. We'll do anything we can for you, man.
Awesome. Thank you so much.